Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Femtech in Asia. My name is Karen. I'm the founder of the Della HQ, and Femtech in Asia is your window into the world of femtech and sexual wellness in Asia. Today we have with us Umeera from YIN. Hi Umeera.
Hi, everybody.
Hi,
I
how are
guess,
you?
well, good, good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So I approached Umeera on Instagram to do an interview because I don't know if the audience knows this, but last year in 2020, towards the last quarter, there was suddenly, the boom in home kits for birth control. I'm sorry, home
Yeah.
kits at home services for birth control, and Yin was one of them. So we're very happy. Well, I'm very happy to have Umeera here with me today because they're live in Singapore and Malaysia in a really short time. And if I'm
Yeah.
not wrong, launching in New Zealand soon, right?
Yes, correct.
So
You're
if you
very
can
spot
tell
on
us a
on
bit
that one.
about Yin and yourself and how
Yeah,
the business came about.
absolutely. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me
Oh,
today,
you're
Karen. It
welcome.
was so lovely bumping onto you on Instagram. I mean, who would have thought? I mean, it's amazing,
Yeah.
isn't it?
That's how modern
Um,
business relationships start, right? On
Yeah, it is
Instagram.
incredible. I mean, I was like browsing on my chats and I was like, oh my God, hello. Um, so yeah, Yin is definitely in a very interesting space, and I think my co-founder and I, who unfortunately wasn't able to join us tonight, but we started Yin about 4 months ago.
Wow.
Um, this is something we put together in a month, and the purpose behind Yin is so much bigger. We wanted to help and educate women in Southeast Asia and providing them with a service that is accessible as well as affordable. I think that's very important because understanding different socioeconomics as well. And we want to offer a service that is no different to a premium service. So you pay on the low, but you essentially getting a premium service. So that's what something we started. And I think with Snell's past experiences with Rosemary, it just sort of was the perfect match to start something and to help women primarily. In terms of expanding into multiple different countries, though, our purpose was to reach out to as many women as we could, create a strong community, because I think, if anything, COVID has taught us that you're not confined to one space. We wanted women to meet women. We wanted to connect women in Singapore with women in New Zealand. We wanted to create that women community so that they could exchange stories, create open boundaries, and truly understand the different possibilities out there. So that was what Yin was all about. We wanted to create that very strong community of women supporting women. So yeah, we definitely are in an exciting space, and there's so much more to achieve. And I think just in terms of like the countries we expanded to, has been truly incredible. Meeting so many different women and hearing their stories and connecting with them, we truly could not be more excited and happy to be here today.
I mean, one thing really caught my attention when you said, "How did you put this together in a month?" I mean, that's
I would say
incredible, and you're only 4 months old, young. That's
yes, we
nothing.
are very young. To be very honest, I need to credit a big chunk of it to my co-founder, Sunil. I think his experience with Rosemary and the connections that he has established in the last years has truly tremendously helped the business where it is today. We were able to put contracts and put people together within weeks. We
Yeah.
had pre-planned relationships, and everything just sort of fell in place really, really well. We had a strong tech team that was able to support us in such a short turnover, literally in 3 weeks. It was incredible. So
Wow,
yeah,
I that's amazing.
yes, I mean, we obviously had many sleepless nights. We had so many Zoom calls. Like it was a crazy month, I think, in a pandemic with everything happening around. And it was something. It is very challenging, but it's truly something that you live for. I think to see something from 0 to 100, it was amazing.
Yeah, I can imagine. That feeling must be incredible. Um,
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask, where are you from? I mean, you and your co-founder Sunil, because you've launched first in Singapore and Malaysia. Are you guys from there?
Yeah, so it's a very interesting story actually. Sunil and I are both Malaysians. We grew up in Malaysia, but were then sent overseas at a very young age. So Sunil practically grew up in New Zealand, and I grew up in Australia. So at the moment, I'm based in Melbourne in Australia, and Sunil's in New Zealand. We had plans to go back and be in Singapore actually when we started YIN, but
Oh,
because of COVID and the whole situation, we had to put a bit of a pause on the
mm-hmm.
plans. But ultimately, we that is also why we started YIN in Southeast Asia, because of our friendships, my friendships and relationships that I have with my girlfriends back home. We realized that there was a significant gap in terms of education, accessibility, just knowledge around the idea. So yeah, that's a little bit about where we are from actually.
What are your girlfriends saying about the service and it is much needed in the countries? Because so I'm from Singapore and I know that to get birth control pills, you need to visit the clinic to get a prescription. So
Mm,
such a service is really appreciated, I think, in Singapore, where you can do it from the comfort of
yeah,
your home. How's that in
yeah.
Malaysia?
It is actually very interesting because unlike Singapore, and the the special thing about Southeast Asia is that each country is so unique.
Yeah.
Whereas comparatively, if you look at Australia and New Zealand, it's very similar. You need a prescription regardless. So when we started this in Southeast Asia, we wanted to make sure that we were providing a very trustworthy and equipped service to the women. So regardless whether you need a prescription or not, we wanted to make sure that we had a doctor on board and we had a doctor on hand to make sure that the advice that is given to women is of solid nature. It's not just we want to make sure that despite whether you are new or whether you are on birth controls, number one is to know that you have a support of a doctor or a pharmacist on hand to be able to guide you through your process. I think that's very important because you may come across scenarios where you're unsure how to tackle them and you need immediate support. So I think regardless in Malaysia, knowing that a prescription is not necessary, we do still require every person to complete a consult online, which is then reviewed by our doctor or a pharmacist, a qualified pharmacist, who would only review the patient's history and then prescribe a pill. So we are very diligent and we're very thorough in our processes just to make sure that everyone is well taken care of.
Actually, that segues really nicely into my next question, which I should have asked earlier. But could you walk us through the process of the customer experience on Yin?
Yeah, absolutely. So with YIN, it's a mobile or it's an online service essentially. So all you have to do is sign up to our platform, complete a questionnaire, and this questionnaire covers every aspect of whether you're new to birth controls, you're currently using one, or you have not been using one in a time, but you're not new to the concept. So with that, you answer a series of questions that covers all your health backgrounds, which you typically have to address when taking birth control. This questionnaire typically lasts for about, I think, 2 to 5 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what sort of person you are. Once that's done, you pay for your consult in Malaysia or you pay for your membership in Singapore. And from there, the team reviews it and prescribes, and then you just pay for your pill. And within 7 days is when the whole process takes about 3 to 7 days. So we ultimately achieve everything within 3 days. But worst case scenario, depending, sometimes there can be follow ups between the doctor and the patient and we make sure that everything gets shipped out within the 7 days.
And what is the clientele, the demographics that you're seeing on the app, on this service?
Very interesting. We're getting women as young as 18 and as old as 40. So, um, initially, that's what we targeted at the end of the day. I think we did a study and we did some research knowing that there's you have your group between 18 to like 25, and then you have that group between 25 that are 30, and then you have that 30 to 40 stage. So there are different cycles that which women are on and off birth control. But ultimately, yeah, we've had an interesting demographic of women, and it was so interesting connecting with them and speaking to them and hearing from them was definitely very, very nice.
And I mean, do you have any bad experiences trying to get birth control? Was it something that also stemmed from personal experience? Because I know a lot of femtech sexual wellness businesses, a lot of it stems from personal bad experiences that women go through when visiting the doctors. Just was wondering if that's something that's true in your case too. Because I mean, I've been to the doctor to try to ask for birth control pills at a young age, and
Yeah.
like I didn't want to be there, right? Didn't want to be in the clinic, didn't want to be in the doctor's room. And it's just
Yeah.
like, don't look at me, I'm just here in and out.
Yeah. No, I think there definitely that element definitely does exist, but I can't say it was from me personally because I've been very fortunate to be exposed to a very different culture growing up, especially in that crucial years of 18 to 25. Um, what did trigger yin was the fact that when I used to go back to Malaysia for holidays, there was this significant gap in terms of like questions of, oh, you take birth control. Oh, what did they do exactly?
Mm-hmm.
How long can I take them for? I mean, um, to me, these are very basic concepts, and I think here in Australia, it's so normal to have a consult with a doctor, and they spend sufficient time with you. I mean, it's easy as calling up the pharmacist, and they will guide you through the whole process. So I was very guarded when I did have the experience over here, but it was very interesting to go back to Malaysia, and it was a completely foreign concept. So I think from their perspective, that was something that triggered yin, but personally, it wasn't something that came from me.
Well,
So
that's,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, I was talking to a few younger women today, and so
Hmm.
I'm 36 this year. Well, no, actually, scratch that, I'm 37.
Yeah.
And I was just saying how during my time when I was growing up, like being in teens as a teenager, there really wasn't any form of sort of alternative sources of information where you could go to educate yourself on your sexual health and reproductive
Yeah.
health, right? And I
Yeah.
think it's super lucky that kids growing up now in their teens, they're exposed to all different, more informative and educative choices that they can make. And I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's really great. What is the mission for Yin?
Um, Yun's mission is actually very special to us. To my co-founder and I, we plan to democratize access to birth control pills and information around birth control pills primarily. But that's not just what Yin is about. There are many more things that Yin will expand into, but we will reveal that closer to time. But ultimately, is providing accessible and safe healthcare to women, creating a community for women to know that you're strong, you have support. I think it could be just as much as you want to talk about a situation or you just want to flick a question and not be judged. In these sort of concepts, it's very important to create a community, especially in Asia where you see you see the inequality of the Western culture rising and supporting women. It's just as important for us to make sure that in Southeast Asia, women feel like they can make their own choices. I mean, it's up to you if you want to go on birth controls or
Yeah.
not. That's perfectly fine. And we use it for various different reasons. But to know that you can make that choice and you should be able to make that choice is very important. So yeah, it's definitely a very exciting journey.
And what have you learned about yourself on this journey? I mean, that's pretty intense
Oh,
going from 0 to 100 in a month and launching in two
um,
countries in 4 months.
if there's anything um, I've learned is that our human body is incredible. The adrenaline rush of not getting any sleep for a few days and working, and it's just incredible. You learn so much about yourself, you grow so much with your team. I think personally for me, I've never always been a tech person, and what Yin has taught me is to literally back up my socks and like figure it out, like I remember there were days at the very beginning where I was like, I don't even know what EDMs are, or rather, I don't even know how to trigger an EDM. But it was something as so simple as putting a flow through, and I'm like, wow, okay, how am I meant to know about that? So it was very, very interesting, and it's very fun. And I think my knowledge and understanding and growth is tremendous in the last 2 months. I would I'm sure you understand this is no easy journey and it's no easy part. And I think COVID has not made anything easier, but I think if anything, it has tested our abilities. And I've never taken no for an answer. Let's put it this way in these last 2 months, whether it's calling people and screwing them up, but no is never an answer
That's
for
actually
us,
a
at
skill.
least.
That's actually a skill.
Yes, and it's so interesting, right? Because I've always been like this nice person, and I still am. Don't get me wrong, but then it's come to a stage where you know what I've had enough, so I'm just gonna give you a call, and this is what's gonna happen, and that's it.
I'm doing it for the
um,
business.
yes, so it is very interesting. I think you learn so many different sides of yourself. Um, yeah, it's good.
Um, I mean, I guess also in producing content for the brand, I'm sure you're also learning every day a lot about the female body, about female health. How, I'm actually curious, how is the sexual education like in Australia where you went to school versus what your girlfriends say about the sexual education in Malaysia that they received? Is it
Um,
a lot more
so to
comprehensive?
I actually came here for college and uni. So I went to school in Malaysia.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas my co-founder, who is a male, he doesn't have much exposure to this, but he grew up in New Zealand. But in terms of my personal preference, growing up in Malaysia in schools, we were not exposed to such education. It basically just came from home, or you would read up about it, and it was definitely very different from when I came over here in Australia. And I was speaking to my friends about it, their exposure was different, the education was different. So, but on that note, though, I think the cultures are very different. You've got to respect that as well.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect an Australian culture in Malaysia, for example.
Yeah.
But what is nice to see is that now they're imposing education to younger children. That is so important because we still did well, but our generation is very knowledged around this as well. But it's also nice to see that you have the younger and the next generation being exposed to this from a very young age. Things can be very
Yes.
different for them. The choices they make could be different. We don't know. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I don't know if it's true or if it's not, but I always feel that the Gen Zers are
yeah,
kind of really a lot more, I guess, informed and
yeah,
asking questions. You know, I mean, I
yeah,
think about myself growing up and it wasn't talked about, but I had no idea that it wasn't talked about. It just wasn't there, right? And it wasn't something that you just go and ask or search for. So,
yeah.
I
Correct.
mean,
So it was pretty much the same, and
yeah,
which is why I think it's so nice to see people a bit more open about it. You've at the end of the day, you got to respect cultures, all said and done.
yeah,
It
exactly.
is a differentiating point with
Yeah.
countries. But it's nice to see at least you're incorporating knowledge. And with Gen Z, I think they're such an interesting breed, and it's such a fun time because their concepts and their exposure to the world is so different to what I was growing up with, or I dare say what you were growing up with.
Yes.
So it's definitely very interesting to see which direction they go into. But with TikTok in space, I think it is quite fun. I would put it that way. So yeah.
Do you have any standout testimonials that, come to the front of your mind? Are there any
Um,
memorable client stories, customer stories?
yes, actually, we receive a touching story every other day.
Wow.
I would say we get messages of on Instagram saying, "Thank you so much for doing this for the women in Asia. Thank you." Just a lot of thank yous, and sometimes it's very overwhelming because you're like, "Okay, am I doing the right
Do you
thing? Am
feel a
I
lot of
not doing the right
responsibility?
thing?" It is a very big responsibility, and that's why I think having a very solid team as
Yeah.
well. And Yin has always practiced the concept that if we feel that you're not ready, we don't push it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get customers signing up and they have questions, and we say, you know what, that's fine. We're happy to refund you your fee and your membership.
Yeah.
Take your time, think about it. When you're ready, come back to us. The one thing about us is that we're not hungry for customers, and we encourage people to be wanting to be part of the platform, but we're not here to scheme you for it.
Yeah.
Because it's a very competitive industry, and I think a lot of people will be looking at acquiring customers. You have
Yes.
so many different competitors in Singapore alone. And I think one thing we've realized is when it comes to a business like that, you can't force women to be part of you. They have to want to be part of your community. They have to
Yeah.
be wanting involved. And that's a decision as a user you've got to make. I mean, we can only do so much.
Yeah.
And but in terms of, the testimonials we received, it is very, very beautiful. I must say some of the best messages we've ever received, personally.
How do customers usually find you?
Um, so at the moment, we're Yin is at a stage that we are relaunching the whole brand in a month,
Mm-hmm.
actually. So at present, customers are finding us via Instagram. So we communicate a lot on Instagram. We have a reasonable following, and I think a lot of it has in the last month or so has come from a word of mouth. So it's very interesting, because we can track the customer journey, and we realize like, oh, okay, this is something we've not done in this region.
Mm.
So it's interesting to see you pop up in this area. So it's very, yeah.
Has there been any implementations that have resulted, uh, that have occurred as a result of customer feedback? Something that maybe you guys didn't see
Um,
in the customer journey?
Yes, there were a couple of improvements, and like I said, Yin is only a 3 to 4 month
Yeah.
old company. We're hitting out the 4 month mark, and we wanted to start this and validate the idea, but we have been so overwhelmed with responses. That's why we are escalating our rebrand, and we have a whole new concept coming out in a month. With that concept, we have taken as much customer feedback as we could in the last 4 months to reiterate on this new launch. And I think one thing that we took very right in our hands was customer feedback. So
Mm-hmm.
actually, my co-founder and I, we were actively getting in touch with people. We wanted to hear firsthand of what could be better and what are your pressing points.
Just super
And
hands-on.
yeah, we're super hands-on. We did everything. We did the packaging, we did the every customer journey, every customer questionnaire, every customer question, everything you could possibly think of. We were like, yeah, we want to fully understand
Mm-hmm.
what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Because like I said, the whole thing about Yin is we're not just another business, but
Yeah.
we're positioning, excuse my English, ourselves as a support community that
Yeah.
offers and takes care of your needs. At the end of the day, like I said, we can't force you to be with us, but you yourself should want to
Yeah.
be with us because you believe in what we want to do.
Yeah. I think that's beautiful.
So yeah, so it is. So yeah, it is definitely a lot of things I think we learned, and like I said, I think everything you start, there's gonna be a few things that you're gonna miss out on. Like you can't help it. And some things were actually very interesting, in terms of like turnarounds, communication, things like that, which we are improving. We've taken everything down and it's all being reflected in a few weeks, hopefully.
Well, last question.
Oh.
And I feel like I know the answer to this, but I'm gonna ask anyway. Is
Sure.
there anything you wish that you guys would have done differently from inception to
Um,
now, ideation to now?
to be honest, yes. I think there were a few execution decisions that I think we could have done differently. But on the hindsight, I think every startup you learn as you grow. That's what startups are all about. You make mistakes, you learn, you reiterate, and you grow from there. So, to be honest, yes, there were two major execution decisions that we could have taken and done differently. Um, but at the end of the day, we are thankful for the experience because of that, we are now 10 times, we have like a 10-step procedure before making another decision in that sense, um, leading to that. So I think the biggest lesson here is that startups are no easy journey. I think every day is a different story. Every second it's a different idea. It's a different, you could probably do 10 things to that business, but you've got to pick and choose. So we picked and choose. We made some mistakes along the way. Most importantly, I'm very proud to say that at 4 months, we have realized the biggest mistakes and we're already at reiterating the whole platform and making sure that doesn't happen again. And I can tell you that in 6 months we might make another mistake, but that's not going to stop us from doing what we want to do and achieving what we want to achieve. Because I think with mistakes you become better. With experiences, that's just how you learn.
Well said.
So
I fully
yeah.
agree
Yeah, no,
about
it
picking
is
and
true.
choosing, which is super difficult. But yeah, you're right. You could do so many things with the one business, and you just have to sit down
You
and like
could, and
focus and drill into that one thing.
correct. And it's so easy sometimes. We've had a stage of time where we sat back and we're like, damn, we shouldn't have done that. We shouldn't have done this, or we shouldn't have, accepted that this was okay. But it's I always feel it's easier to say now, but at that point of time, that did
Yeah,
seem like the best option. At
yeah,
that point of time, that was the best pick. But to realize that now, and I think to know that you shouldn't be repeating those mistakes and you learn along the way, that is what it's all about at
yeah,
the end of the day.
yeah,
You pick yourself up and you're like, yeah, believe in it. At the end, it's not about, this is not a decision game. It's about believing in your vision and your mission, to making sure that you grow with it. It's not just the company grows, you grow with it. So I'm like, yes, I fully understand what that means now.
Well, I fully understand too. That's really all the
Yeah,
time we have. So thank you, Umeera,
perfect.
so much for taking the
No
time
worries,
to do this
Karen.
interview with me. I
Of
wish you all the
course.
best, and really, I can't wait to see what you guys have for the relaunch.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was lovely speaking to you as well.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.